Greetings and welcome to another Pokemon 2019 or Pokemon Journeys the Series anime video. So, on April 1st, 1997, the first episode of the Pokemon anime aired on Japanese television, which means that on April 1st, 2022, the Pokemon anime is 25 years old, which is why I decided to make a special video to commemorate this monumental occasion. Now, months ago, I received a request for a video from one of my subscribers, and I immediately started to work on the script for said video. I even did a fair amount of research for it. But I had to halt production on said video because of all the extra reviews I had to do because of the Arceus arc, which led to me being behind on reviews for weeks. So I decided to go back to that video since it is in progress, and because it would be a great video to celebrate the anime's 25th anniversary with. Because it is a video that looks back on the history of the anime when it comes to one specific fact. However, even though the video is in progress, it is still far from done, because it is a video that requires a lot of research, and I simply won't have enough time to finish it in time for April 1st. Unless I cut corners, which is not something that I wanted to do. Instead, I decided to put said video on the back burner for now, until I can find the time to finish it properly. Therefore, I had to think of something else that I could make a video on. Something that would allow me to make a good video in time for the anniversary, and something that would make for a great anniversary video. So I ended up going back to an idea I had months ago, which is to make a video on ways Pokemon Journeys breaks tradition when it comes to the Pokemon anime. Now, originally this idea was meant to be filler, for whenever I had no other video to work on. But after thinking about it, I realized that making a video on this idea means comparing Pokemon Journeys, which is the series that is airing during the anime's 25th anniversary, to every other previous series which composed the 25-year history of the anime. So I realized that this idea is perfect for the occasion, and, the better yet, I can expand it. Because when I first had the idea, I only thought of about 5 to 10 ways in which Pokemon Journeys breaks tradition. But after thinking about it some more, I was able to come up with 25 ways instead, which is the ideal number for this occasion, and a number that I could not match with the video that was going to be the anniversary video originally. However, this expansion has transformed the idea, because this video is no longer just about ways in which Pokemon Journeys breaks tradition. Instead, it is about things Pokemon Journeys did first, / ways in which Pokemon Journeys breaks tradition. So, let's get to it now, shall we? Before I get to the list itself, I just wanted to set some ground rules. First, I decided to divide the 25 things into 3 categories, just to make the video flow better, and so that it is structured better. The 3 categories are characters, specifically human characters, Pokemon, and format / setup of the series. I will go through the categories in this same order. Second, in order to have 25 things to talk about so that I can match the anniversary, I did have to include a few things that you could argue don't belong in this video, but I will explain my reasoning for including them when I get to them. Finally, I did exclude a few things that do belong in this video without a doubt. I excluded them simply because I did not want to have more than 25 things. Again, because I wanted to match the anniversary. Also, when picking and choosing what to include in the video, I opted to include the more interesting things. I could make another video in the future talking about X more things Pokemon Journeys did first / ways in which Pokemon Journeys breaks tradition. So now let's get to it for real. Like I said earlier, I will start with the characters category. This category focuses on things Pokemon Journeys did first / ways in which Pokemon Journeys breaks tradition when it comes to characters, specifically when it comes to human characters. So first, Pokemon Journeys is the first series in which Ash only has one traveling companion. This one is pretty self-explanatory. In previous series, Ash always had at least two traveling companions. But in Pokemon Journeys, he only has one, which is of course Go. This is one of the weakest parts of Pokemon Journeys in my opinion. Not just because Go is, well, not that great of a character, but also because the more the merrier, right? More characters just makes things more enjoyable, varied, and dynamic. Now, Chloe does travel with Ash and Go from time to time, but this happens very little. Chloe is not even considered a main character, so she does not save Pokemon Journeys from being the first series where Ash only has one traveling companion. Speaking of Chloe, she is also unable to save Pokemon Journeys from this next point. Precisely because Chloe does not count as a traveling companion, Pokemon Journeys is also the first series in which Ash does not have a female traveling companion. Like I said before, in every previous series, Ash had at least two traveling companions. One of them was always a girl. But Pokemon Journeys breaks this tradition since Chloe is unfortunately relegated to appearing only every now and then. Next, Pokemon Journeys is the first series that has more than one protagonist. Because Go is the only traveling companion that Ash has in Pokemon Journeys, the screen time and the development in this series only has to be split in two. So Go has received more focus than previous traveling companions, to the point that Go is even considered a protagonist. While previous traveling companions were all just main characters, Ash was always the only protagonist. But in Pokemon Journeys, Go shares the mantle of protagonist with Ash. A lot of the things that are included in this video have to do with Go. His unique place as another protagonist is what allows him to have such an influence/impact. Next, Pokemon Journeys is the first series in which Ash does not have a main rival. Rivals are a major part of Pokemon, which is why Ash always had a main rival in every series, such as Gary, Paul, Alon, and Gladion. In every series, Ash also had at least one minor/secondary/less significant rival, like Harrison, Barry, Nando, and Hau. However, in Pokemon Journeys, Ash does not have a main rival. He only has minor rivals like Bee, Rinto, and Marnie. Now you could argue that Bee is Ash's main rival in Pokemon Journeys since they have battled 3 times. And both of them have 1 win, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Also, when Ash settled the score with Bee on their 3rd battle, Bee ended up respecting Ash, and they became friends. Which is definitely something that would happen with a main rival. But main rivals are usually introduced very early in a series. They persist until the end of the series, appearing multiple times to battle and or taunt Ash, and Ash only settles the score with them in the end. But Bee was introduced in episode 34, and Ash settled the score with her in episode 86. If you exclude minor background/cameo appearances, Bee only appeared in the 3 episodes where she battled Ash, so I do not really consider her a main rival. You could also make a case that Leon is Ash's main rival in Pokemon Journeys, but I don't think that this is true. So Pokemon Journeys is the first series where Ash does not have a main rival. Next, Pokemon Journeys is the first series in which Ash reunites with former traveling companions from more than one series. This one is pretty self-explanatory as well. In every previous series, Ash would only reunite with former traveling companions from one previous series. For example, in the Sun and Moon series, Ash only reunited with Misty and Brock, his traveling companions from the original series. In the Black and White series, Ash only reunited with Dawn, one of his traveling companions from the Diamond and Pearl series. In Pokemon Journeys, however, Ash has reunited with Dawn, Iris, Brock, Clement, Bonnie, and with his friends from the Alola region. I think that this is one of the greatest strengths that Pokemon Journeys has. Next, Pokemon Journeys is the first main series to feature an episode where Ash and the Pikachu are completely absent. This one is pretty straightforward. Ash and the Pikachu do not appear at all in episode 32 of Pokemon Journeys, which focuses on Go. Previous series did have episodes where Ash and Pikachu would only appear briefly, episodes where they had a minor role, but they still did appear in such episodes. In episode 32 of Pokemon Journeys, however, they are completely absent, which is definitely an anomaly. This is the first and only time this has ever happened in the main series. Finally, for this first category, Pokemon Journeys is the first series where Ash defeats a regional champion. This one is pretty straightforward as well. In episode 65 of Pokemon Journeys, Iris returned. It turns out that she is now the champion of the Unova region. She then battled Ash and Ash won. While Ash has battled regional champions before, like Diantha in the XY and Z series, he was never able to defeat one until he defeated Iris in Pokemon Journeys. Next, we get to the Pokemon category. This category focuses on things Pokemon Journeys did first, / ways in which Pokemon Journeys breaks tradition when it comes to Pokemon. Several of the things in this category have to do with Go, while many others have to do with Ash. So first, Pokemon Journeys is the first series in which a main character catches a legendary Pokemon. Simply put, in previous series, a main character never captured a legendary Pokemon, for obvious reasons. But in episode 45 of Pokemon Journeys, Go caught Eternatus. So Go is the first and so far only main character to ever catch a legendary Pokemon. To make matters worse, in episode 53, he caught Suicune as well. Now I still don't agree with either of these facts, and I probably never will, but what can you do about it? All I can do is accept that these things happened and move on. Next, Pokemon Journeys is the first series in which another main character catches more Pokemon than Ash. This one is also pretty straightforward. In previous series, Ash would always catch at least 5 Pokemon, and he continues this tradition in Pokemon Journeys. While his traveling companions would always catch less Pokemon than Ash, even if they only caught just 1 less Pokemon than Ash. I am excluding Pokemon obtained from regional professors or from eggs or Pokemon received as a gift, since these do not count as captures. But in Pokemon Journeys, Go has caught, well, a lot of Pokemon. In fact, as of episode 102, he has 104 individual Pokemon. And he has 114 Pokemon species registered in his Pokédex. Meaning that Go has not only caught more Pokemon than Ash in Pokemon Journeys, but he has caught more Pokemon than Ash, period. Which is just insane when you consider that Ash has been journeying for more than 1,000 episodes. Next, Pokemon Journeys is the first series in which Ash does not catch a starter Pokemon. In every previous series, Ash always caught at least 1 starter Pokemon, which was from the current generation at the time. But in Pokemon Journeys, Ash has not caught a single starter Pokemon, and I doubt that he will catch one. The reason why Ash did not catch a starter Pokemon in this series is that he would have caught one of the Galar starters. But Go caught all of them, leaving Ash without a starter. This takes us to the next point. Because Go caught all 3 Galar starters, Pokemon Journeys is also the first series in which a main character other than Ash catches more than 1 starter Pokemon of the current generation. In previous series, Ash would sometimes not catch all 3 starters of the current generation. Sometimes he would only catch 2. The remaining starter would be caught by one of Ash's traveling companions. Or Ash would catch only 1 starter, and the other 2 would be caught by 2 of Ash's traveling companions. Meaning that no main character other than Ash could get more than 1 starter of the current generation. Until Go came along. Also, Pokemon Journeys is the first series in which a main character other than Ash catches more than 1 starter Pokemon, period. I am combining this one with the previous one since they are closely related. Now Dawn and May did and do have more than 1 starter Pokemon. But again, I am excluding Pokemon that were not captured. Personally, I do hate the fact that Ash did not get to catch a starter Pokemon in Pokemon Journeys. Next, I will give Go a break by going through several points that have to do with Ash and his Pokemon in Pokemon Journeys. Ash's first capture in Pokemon Journeys was Dragonite, which is a fully evolved Generation 1 Pokemon. Meaning that Pokemon Journeys is the first series in which the first Pokemon that Ash catches is not from the current generation, since Dragonite is not from Generation 8. Because of Dragonite, Pokemon Journeys is also the first series in which the first Pokemon that Ash catches is fully evolved. Since in every previous series, his first capture was a Pokemon in its lowest stage of evolution, or a Pokemon that cannot evolve, which is the case with Heracross, Ash's first capture in the Johto region. Next up is 4 that go in the same subcategory, since they all involve Ash catching a specific kind of Pokemon for the first time. So Pokemon Journeys is the first series in which Ash catches the following. A Ghost-type Pokemon, which is of course Gengar, and this happened in episode 16 of Pokemon Journeys. A baby Pokemon, which was of course Riolu, and this happened in episode 21 of Pokemon Journeys. A regional form of a Pokemon, which was of course Galarian Farfetch'd, and this happened in episode 27 of Pokemon Journeys. And finally, a fossil Pokemon, which was of course Dracovish, and this happened in episode 50 of Pokemon Journeys. Pokemon Journeys is also the first series in which Ash Mega Evolves one of his Pokemon. He Mega Evolved Lucario in episode 86. Now normally this would have happened back in the XY and C series, but prior to Pokemon Journeys, Ash would only catch Pokemon from what was the current generation at the time. So he only caught Generation 6 Pokemon in the XY and C series. The only Generation 6 Pokemon that can Mega Evolve is Diancie, which Ash was never going to catch, for obvious reasons. So Ash was left without a Pokemon that could Mega Evolve outside of his old Pokemon, which did not return in the XY and C series. Which is why he got Ash Greninja instead, so that he could still have a Pokemon that has a special transformation. But Pokemon Journeys finally gave Ash Mega Evolution. Like I mentioned in the previous point, in the past, Ash would only catch Pokemon from what was the current generation at the time. But like I said, this was prior to Pokemon Journeys, because Pokemon Journeys broke this tradition, since it is the first series in which Ash's team does not end up being composed of only Pokemon from the current generation. Now, I did not say that this is the first series where Ash catches Pokemon that are not from the current generation, because in the Diamond and Pearl series, he caught Gligar, a Generation 2 Pokemon. But Gligar ended up evolving into Gliscor, a Generation 4 Pokemon. So Ash still ended up with a team of only Generation 4 Pokemon, which was the current generation back then. But here in Pokemon Journeys, Ash only has 2 Generation 8 Pokemon, while the rest of his team is from Generations 1 and 4. So it is more accurate to say that Pokemon Journeys is the first series in which Ash's team does not end up being composed of only Pokemon from the current generation. Precisely because in the previous series Ash would only catch Pokemon from the current generation, his first capture, which would happen within the first 4 episodes of a series, was always of a new current generation Pokemon, meaning that he got one of said Pokemon early on, the perfect way to kickstart a new series in a new region. But this is not the case in Pokemon Journeys, which is the series where it took the longest for Ash to get a Pokemon from the current generation, since his first Generation 8 Pokemon was Dracovish in episode 50, meaning that in Pokemon Journeys it took Ash 50 episodes to get a Pokemon from the current generation, much more than in all previous series. This is excluding Galarian Farfetch'd, which does come from the Galar region, but it's technically not a Generation 8 Pokemon. Now in the past, there was a tradition that Ash would always catch the regional bird Pokemon of the current generation / region, or its evolved form. He caught Pidgeotto in Kanto, Noctowl in Johto, Tailo in Hoenn, Starly in Sinnoh, Pidove in Unova, and Fletchling in Kalos. But the Sun and the Moon series broke this tradition, since Ash did not catch Pikipek or one of its evolutions. Pokemon Journeys continues the breaking of this tradition, since Ash has not caught Rookidee or one of its evolved forms, which is especially painful for me since Corviknight is one of my favorite Generation 8 Pokemon. Now because the Sun and the Moon series broke this tradition first, Pokemon Journeys is not the first series to break it. However, since Pokemon Journeys could have revived this tradition, and instead it ended up neglecting it once again, thus making it even less of a tradition, I think that it is still worth including this tradition in this video as one that Pokemon Journeys broke. Especially since when compared to every previous series except the Sun and the Moon series, Pokemon Journeys is breaking a tradition by not having Ash catch the regional bird. Also in the Sun and the Moon series, Ash caught Rowlet, who was born to a flock of Pikipek, led by a Toucanon and a Trumbeak. Rowlet got to interact with its surrogate family several times. I always saw this as a nod to the tradition that Ash would always catch the regional bird. It's like they were telling us, hey, Ash did not catch the regional bird this time. However, he still did catch a flying type bird Pokemon that has to do with the regional bird. But something like this does not happen in Pokemon Journeys, making it sure that this tradition is good and truly dead, at least for now. After going through a bunch of things relating to Go, and then going through a bunch of things relating to Ash, what better way to close out this category than with something relating to both Ash and Go? Pokemon Journeys is the first series in which two main characters catch the same Pokemon. This is another one that is very straightforward. In previous series, if a main character caught a Pokemon, no other main character would catch the same Pokemon. You know, to keep things varied and interesting. But this tradition was broken in Pokemon Journey since Ash and Go both catch a Farfetch'd. Sure, Ash catches Galarian Farfetch'd, while Go catches Cantonian Farfetch'd, but they are still both Farfetch'd. Finally, we get to the format/setup category. This category focuses on things Pokemon Journeys did first, / ways in which Pokemon Journeys breaks tradition when it comes to the way the series is structured. So, Pokemon Journeys is the first series that does not take place mainly in one region. Every previous series is set mostly in the region that is the setting of the generation of games that said the series takes its name from, which was at the time the current generation. Going by this tradition, Pokemon Journeys should take place in the Galar region exclusively, or almost exclusively. But instead, in Pokemon Journeys, Ash and Go travel to the 8 regions in the main series of games. And they also go to several anime-only locations. Next, Ash does not challenge any gyms in Pokemon Journeys. Defeating gyms and obtaining gym badges is not his objective in this series, which is in stark contrast to almost every other series. Now this is another tradition that the Sun and the Moon series broke first. However, the Sun and the Moon series had no choice but to break this tradition, because Pokemon Sun and the Moon do not have gyms at all, so the anime was just being faithful to the games. While Pokemon Sword and Shield do have gyms. So in Pokemon Journeys, Ash could have challenged the gyms of the Galar region. But this is not the case, so Pokemon Journeys willingly broke this tradition. So technically this is the first series in which Ash does not challenge gyms. The first series in which obtaining 8 gym badges is not his objective. Finally, we have another one that the Sun and the Moon series did first. In Pokemon Journeys, Ash stays in one location instead of traveling through a region. In most previous series, Ash would travel to one region, and he would then travel through said region from start to finish. He and his traveling companions would simply camp outside, or stay in a hotel, at a Pokemon Center, or at someone's house, etc. when it was time to sleep. But in the Sun and the Moon series, Ash stayed at Professor Kukui's house, and he would travel from here to some place in Alola. He would have his adventure, and he would come back to Kukui's house. In Pokemon Journeys, Ash stays in Cerise Institute, and from here, he travels with Go to wherever they need to go. So the Sun and the Moon series and the Pokemon Journeys have this same structure. A structure that is very different from the structure that every other series had. But again, while Pokemon Journeys is not the first series to break this tradition, it still ended up doubling down on the breaking of this tradition, instead of restoring it. And at least in the Sun and the Moon series, Ash was still traveling through one region. It's just that he had a home base to travel from. While in Pokemon Journeys, not only does Ash have a home base to travel from, but he also travels to more than one region. When you take both of these facts into account, Pokemon Journeys is a huge departure from every other previous series, including the Sun and the Moon series. So in the end, while I do appreciate some of the ways in which Pokemon Journeys changed the structure of the Pokemon anime, which brought some much needed refreshment to an old formula, I still do miss the old format, and part of me wishes that Ash could have traveled through the Galar region as normal, catching at least one starter Pokemon and the regional bird in the process, while also challenging the 8 gyms of the region with a classic main rival to compete against, and with a proper group of traveling companions that features more than one friend. Now that's not to say that I don't like Pokemon Journeys, because I do. It's just that I love the old formula very much. There is a reason why it worked so well, and why it was used for so long. It is just a great formula, and I do miss it very much. Maybe Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the series, will go back to a more familiar structure. Or who knows, maybe my prediction from several months ago will come true, and Pokemon Journeys will not go anywhere. But yeah, that's everything I have for you in this video. Again, this is a special video that I made to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the Pokemon anime. I now want to hear from you, dear viewer. What do you think of the fact that Pokemon Journeys has broken tradition so much? Do you like the changes, or do you prefer the way things were before? Also, if you can, I would like to hear what you think of the Pokemon anime in its entirety. Meaning that I wanted to know what the Pokemon anime means to you. Have you been watching it from the start? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you want it to continue for years? Etc. Basically, I wanted to see your own happy anniversary message. So now to end the video, I just want to say, happy 25th anniversary Pokemon anime. You have been a part of my life for most of my life. An important, special, and irreplaceable part at that. And I seriously hope that this will continue to be the case for many more years to come. But that's the video, as always. Leave your own thoughts down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and would like to see more like it, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I love Pokemon and I love making videos on both the anime and the games. Also, please consider clicking the links on screen so that you can check out more videos like this right away. Thank you very much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.